Understanding the role of fear in trading is essential because it directly influences how decisions are made under pressure. Fear is not a weakness or a flaw. It is a natural psychological response to uncertainty and potential loss. In trading, where outcomes are never guaranteed and risk is always present, fear becomes part of the environment. The real challenge is not to remove fear, but to understand how it operates and how it affects behavior. Once this is understood, it becomes easier to manage its impact and maintain consistency in decision-making. Fear in trading is often misunderstood because it does not always appear in obvious ways. Many traders expect fear to feel like panic or extreme hesitation, but in reality, it is usually much more subtle. It shows up in small deviations from a well-defined plan. A trader might enter a trade later than intended, waiting for extra confirmation that was never part of the strategy. They might exit a trade earlier than planned, securing a small profit out of concern that the market could reverse. In some cases, they may avoid taking a trade altogether, even when all conditions are met. These actions may seem minor in isolation, but over time, they disrupt the consistency required for a strategy to perform effectively. One of the main sources of fear in trading is uncertainty about outcomes. No matter how well a strategy is designed, it cannot guarantee success on every trade. Each position carries a probability, not a certainty. This creates discomfort because the human mind naturally seeks predictability and control. When faced with uncertainty, the mind tries to reduce that discomfort by making adjustments, changing entry points, tightening stop-loss levels, or skipping trades altogether. While these actions may provide temporary relief, they often interfere with the long-term effectiveness of the trading process. Past experiences also play a significant role in shaping fear. Losses, particularly those that are large or unexpected, tend to leave a lasting psychological impact. A trader who has experienced a sharp drawdown may become more sensitive to risk, even when the current situation is different. This can lead to avoidance behavior, where valid opportunities are ignored simply because they resemble past negative experiences. In this way, fear is not just a reaction to the present moment. It is also influenced by memory. The mind attempts to protect itself from repeating past pain, even if that protection is not always rational or beneficial. Risk exposure is another critical factor that intensifies fear. The larger the perceived risk, the stronger the emotional response. When too much capital is placed on a single trade, even a small market movement can feel significant. This heightened sensitivity makes it difficult to think clearly and follow a plan. Instead of focusing on executing the strategy, the trader becomes focused on avoiding loss. This shift in focus leads to defensive decision-making, such as closing trades prematurely or interfering with stop-loss levels. Proper risk management is therefore not just a technical requirement. It is also a psychological necessity, as it helps keep fear at manageable levels. It is also important to understand that fear does not always result in hesitation or avoidance. In some cases, it leads to overreaction. For example, after experiencing a series of losses, a trader may become overly cautious and close trades too quickly, even when there is no valid reason to do so. Alternatively, fear of missing out on potential recovery may cause impulsive decisions, such as re-entering trades without proper confirmation. These reactions are driven by the same underlying emotion, but they manifest in different ways. Whether it leads to inaction or overreaction, the result is the same: deviation from a structured plan. Developing awareness is the first step toward managing fear effectively. This involves observing behavior without judgment and identifying patterns in decision-making. Traders need to ask themselves questions such as, did I follow my plan on this trade? Or, was this decision based on logic or emotion? By reviewing trades and reflecting on actions, it becomes possible to recognize when fear is influencing decisions. This awareness creates an opportunity for change, as patterns that are identified can also be addressed. The key insight is that fear itself is not the problem, it is a response to perceived risk and uncertainty. Attempting to eliminate fear entirely is unrealistic and unnecessary. Instead, the focus should be on managing the factors that trigger it. This includes maintaining appropriate risk levels, accepting the probabilistic nature of trading, and building confidence through consistent execution of a tested strategy. When these elements are in place, fear becomes less disruptive. It may still be present, but it no longer controls decision-making. Instead of reacting emotionally, the trader is able to follow a structured process with greater clarity and discipline. Over time, this leads to more consistent behavior, which is the foundation of long-term success in trading. Fear disrupts trading decisions in ways that are often subtle, gradual, and difficult to detect in the moment. While traders may believe they are following their strategy, fear can quietly influence small choices that accumulate over time. These small deviations are rarely dramatic, but they consistently interfere with execution. The result is not just occasional mistakes, but a pattern of inconsistency that prevents a strategy from performing as intended. One of the most common ways fear appears is through hesitation. When a valid setup forms, instead of executing immediately according to the plan, the trader pauses. This hesitation is usually driven by doubt. Questions like, what if this trade fails? Or what if I enter at the wrong time? Begin to surface. As a result, the trader waits for extra confirmation that was never part of the original strategy. By the time they finally enter, the price may have already moved, leading to a worse entry or a missed opportunity altogether. Even though the trade might still be taken, the edge of the strategy is reduced because it was not executed under the intended conditions. Premature exits are another clear effect of fear. When a trade moves into profit, the fear of losing those unrealized gains can become overwhelming. Instead of allowing the trade to reach its planned target, the trader closes it early to lock in profit. While this creates a sense of safety in the short term, it weakens the overall performance of the strategy. Profits become smaller than expected while losses, if not managed properly, remain unchanged. Over time, this imbalance makes it difficult to achieve consistent profitability, even if the strategy itself has a positive edge. Fear can also lead to avoidance, particularly after a series of losses. When recent trades have resulted in negative outcomes, confidence tends to drop. The trader becomes more cautious and may begin to question every new opportunity. Even when a setup meets all the criteria, there is hesitation to act. Thoughts like, what if this is another loss? Prevent execution. This avoidance disrupts consistency because a valid trade is skipped, meaning the strategy is no longer being applied evenly across all opportunities. Missing these trades can have a significant impact, especially if they would have been profitable. Another form of fear-based behavior is overcompensation. In an attempt to reduce risk, traders may become excessively cautious. This can include reducing position sizes to a level where meaningful gains are no longer possible or avoiding trades that clearly meet all conditions. While risk management is essential, excessive caution can be just as harmful as taking too much risk. It limits the ability of the strategy to perform as expected. The trader feels safer, but at the cost of reduced effectiveness and slower progress. In some situations, fear triggers reactive decision-making. Sudden market movements, such as sharp price spikes or rapid reversals, can create a sense of urgency. Instead of following a structured plan, the trader reacts impulsively. This might involve closing a trade without a clear reason, simply because the market moved quickly, or entering a trade without proper confirmation out of fear of missing out. These reactions are not based on analysis or rules, but on emotional discomfort. They introduce randomness into the trading process, making outcomes less predictable. What all these behaviors have in common is that they represent a deviation from the defined trading plan. The strategy itself may be well designed and tested, but its effectiveness depends entirely on consistent execution. When fear causes hesitation, early exits, avoidance, or impulsive actions, the strategy is no longer being applied as intended. This creates a disconnect between the system and the results. The trader may begin to doubt the strategy, not realizing that the issue lies in execution rather than the method itself. The impact of fear is not always immediate, it is cumulative. A single hesitant entry or early exit may not seem significant, but when these behaviors are repeated over dozens or hundreds of trades, they create a pattern. This pattern leads to inconsistent results, making it difficult to evaluate performance accurately. It becomes unclear whether losses are due to the strategy or the way it is being executed. Without clarity, improvement becomes challenging, as the root cause of the problem remains hidden. Recognizing these patterns is a critical step toward improvement. traders need to develop the ability to observe their own behavior objectively. This involves reviewing trades and identifying moments where decisions deviated from the plan. Questions such as, "Did I follow my rules exactly?" or "Was this action influenced by fear?" can help uncover these patterns. By identifying how fear manifests in specific actions, traders can begin to address it in a targeted way. Ultimately, fear does not need to be eliminated. It needs to be understood and managed. When traders become aware of how it affects their decisions, they can take steps to reduce its influence. This leads to more consistent execution, clearer performance evaluation, and a stronger alignment between strategy and results. Over time, this consistency is what allows a trader to move beyond emotional reactions and toward a more disciplined and stable approach to the market. Identifying fear-based patterns is a critical step in developing consistency as a trader. Fear itself is not the main problem. What matters is how it translates into behavior. Many traders focus heavily on outcomes, such as profit or loss, but this often hides the real issue. Two traders can have the same result on a trade, yet one followed their plan while the other acted emotionally. Without analyzing behavior, it becomes impossible to understand whether decisions are aligned with the strategy or influenced by fear. A trading journal is one of the most effective tools for uncovering these patterns. By recording each trade in detail, traders create a record of their decision-making process. This should include not just entry and exit points, but also the reasoning behind each decision, the market conditions, and any deviations from the plan. Over time, this data reveals recurring behaviors that are not obvious in the moment. For example, a trader might notice that they frequently hesitate before entering trades after a loss, or that they tend to close trades early when they are slightly in profit. Without documentation, these patterns remain hidden and continue to affect performance. Certain fear-based patterns appear repeatedly across different traders. One of the most common is hesitation before entry. Even when a setup meets all the criteria, there is a delay caused by doubt or discomfort. Another frequent pattern is exiting trades early without a clear rule-based reason. This often happens when a trade moves into profit and the trader wants to secure gains quickly. Avoidance is also common after experiencing losses. Traders may skip valid setups entirely, reducing the number of opportunities taken. These behaviors may seem small individually, but they have a significant impact when repeated consistently. An important part of this process is distinguishing between rational decisions and fear-based decisions. A rational decision is grounded in predefined rules and objective analysis. It follows the structure of the trading plan, regardless of recent outcomes. In contrast, a fear-based decision is driven by emotional discomfort. It may feel justified in the moment, but it is not supported by the system. For example, tightening a stop loss because of increased volatility may be rational if it is part of the plan. However, moving a stop loss simply to avoid the possibility of loss is typically fear-driven. Learning to recognize this difference requires honesty and self-awareness. Self-assessment after each trading session plays a crucial role in building this awareness. Instead of focusing only on whether trades were profitable, traders should review how those trades were executed. Questions such as, "Did I follow my rules exactly?" or "Where did I feel hesitation or discomfort?" can reveal valuable insights. This review process should remain objective and free from judgment. The goal is not to criticize past decisions, but to understand them. When traders focus on behavior rather than outcomes, they gain clarity about what needs to improve. Performance metrics can also provide indirect evidence of fear-based patterns. For example, if the average profit per trade is consistently lower than the planned target, it may indicate a tendency to exit trades too early. If the number of trades taken is significantly lower than expected, it may suggest avoidance of valid setups. Similarly, inconsistent risk levels can point to emotional decision-making. These metrics act as signals, highlighting areas where behavior may not align with the strategy. When combined with journaling, they create a more complete picture of performance. Awareness is the foundation of change. Until patterns are clearly identified, they cannot be addressed effectively. Many traders attempt to fix their results by changing strategies, without realizing that the issue lies in their behavior. By identifying fear-based patterns, the focus shifts from external solutions to internal improvement. This is a more effective and sustainable approach, as it targets the root cause rather than the symptoms. Once these patterns are recognized, they can be addressed through structured adjustments. For example, if hesitation is a recurring issue, the trader may implement stricter entry rules that require immediate execution once conditions are met. If early exits are common, predefined exit levels can be reinforced and followed without exception. The key is to create systems that reduce the influence of emotion and increase consistency in execution. Ultimately, the goal is not to eliminate fear completely. Fear is a natural response and will always be present to some degree. The objective is to prevent it from interfering with decision-making. This can only be achieved by understanding how fear manifests in specific behaviors and taking deliberate steps to manage those behaviors. When traders develop this level of awareness, their approach begins to change. Decisions become more consistent, performance becomes easier to evaluate, and confidence starts to build, not from short-term results, but from disciplined execution. Over time, this leads to a more stable and controlled trading process, where actions are guided by structure rather than emotion. Building systems to reduce the impact of fear is one of the most practical and effective ways to improve trading performance. Fear cannot be removed entirely, but its influence can be significantly reduced by creating a structured environment where decisions are guided by predefined rules rather than emotional reactions. When a trader relies on systems instead of moment-to-moment judgment, consistency begins to replace uncertainty and emotional pressure becomes easier to manage. The foundation of this approach is defining clear rules for every aspect of trading. This includes precise entry criteria, exit conditions, and risk management guidelines. When these elements are clearly outlined in advance, the need for real-time decision-making is minimized. Instead of asking, "What should I do now?" during a trade, the trader simply follows a plan that has already been established. This reduces hesitation and prevents emotional interference. Clarity in rules creates confidence, because each action is based on logic rather than feeling. Risk management plays a central role in controlling fear. The level of emotional discomfort in trading is directly linked to the amount of capital at risk. When too much is risked on a single trade, even small market movements can trigger strong emotional reactions. By limiting risk to a consistent and manageable level, traders reduce the psychological pressure associated with each decision. This makes it easier to accept losses as part of the process and to follow the trading plan without interference. In this sense, risk management is not just about protecting capital, it is also about stabilizing behavior. Pre-trade planning is another powerful tool for reducing uncertainty. Before entering a trade, the trader should already know how they will respond to different scenarios. This includes identifying where the trade will be exited if it moves against them, where profits will be taken, and under what conditions the trade idea becomes invalid. By thinking through these possibilities in advance, the trader eliminates the need to make emotional decisions during the trade. When the market moves, there is no need to react impulsively, because the response has already been defined. This preparation creates a sense of control, even in an uncertain environment. Automation can further strengthen consistency by enforcing rules without emotional interference. Placing stop, loss and take, profit orders at the time of entry ensures that risk parameters are respected, regardless of how the trader feels during the trade. This removes the temptation to adjust positions based on fear or hope. While automation does not replace the need for a solid strategy, it acts as a safeguard, ensuring that key aspects of the plan are executed as intended. It also reduces the mental burden of constantly monitoring trades, allowing the trader to focus on the overall process. Limiting exposure is another important aspect of managing fear. This includes controlling both the size and frequency of trades. Overtrading increases stress because it exposes the trader to more risk and more decision points. Each additional trade creates another opportunity for emotional interference. By being selective and focusing only on high-quality setups, traders reduce unnecessary exposure and maintain better control over their decisions. Fewer trades executed with discipline are often more effective than constant activity, driven by the need to be involved in the market. Routine and structure also contribute significantly to emotional stability. A consistent daily process, such as pre-market analysis, Structured execution during trading hours and post-trade review creates a sense of order. This routine reduces uncertainty because the trader knows exactly what to focus on at each stage. Preparation helps identify opportunities and set expectations. Execution ensures that trades are taken according to plan, and review provides insight for improvement. Over time, this structured approach builds confidence and reduces reliance on instinct or emotion. All of these elements work together to create an environment where decisions are guided by structure rather than emotional reactions. Instead of trying to control fear directly, the focus shifts to controlling the conditions that trigger it. When rules are clear, risk is managed, scenarios are planned, and execution is consistent, fear naturally becomes less disruptive. It may still be present, but it no longer dictates behavior. Ultimately, the objective is not to eliminate emotion, but to reduce its influence on decision-making. Trading becomes less about reacting to the market and more about executing a well-defined system. This shift leads to greater consistency, clearer performance evaluation, and a more stable overall approach. Over time, as structured behavior becomes habitual, the impact of fear continues to decrease, allowing the trader to operate with greater confidence and control. Developing long-term emotional stability in trading is the final and most important stage in building consistency. While strategies, risk management, and structured systems create the foundation, it is the trader's mindset that determines whether those elements are applied effectively over time. Emotional stability is not about removing feelings such as fear or frustration. It is about preventing those emotions from influencing decisions. This requires a shift in perspective, where the focus moves away from individual outcomes and toward the overall process. A process-oriented approach is central to this shift. Instead of judging success based on the result of a single trade, each trade is viewed as one event within a larger sequence. This perspective reduces emotional intensity because no single outcome carries excessive weight. A losing trade is no longer seen as failure, and a winning trade is not seen as proof of correctness. Both are simply outcomes within a probabilistic system. By focusing on whether the process was followed correctly, traders can maintain objectivity and avoid the emotional highs and lows that come from outcome-based thinking. Acceptance of uncertainty is another essential component of emotional stability. Markets are inherently unpredictable, and no strategy can guarantee success on every trade. Attempting to control or eliminate uncertainty leads to frustration and emotional decision-making. Instead, accepting that uncertainty as part of trading allows the trader to operate more calmly. This acceptance reduces the need to predict outcomes and shifts attention toward executing a strategy with a statistical edge. When uncertainty is no longer resisted, it becomes easier to follow the plan without hesitation or interference. Confidence in trading should be built on the process rather than on results. Many traders feel confident after a series of wins and lose confidence after a series of losses. This creates instability, as emotions fluctuate with short-term performance. A more sustainable form of confidence comes from knowing that a strategy has been tested and that it is being executed consistently. Even during losing periods, this type of confidence remains intact because it is not dependent on immediate outcomes. It is grounded in discipline and structure, which are within the trader's control. Continuous improvement is also a key part of long-term stability. Trading is not static. Both the market and the trader evolve over time. Regular review of performance, including both results and behavior, allows for ongoing refinement. This process helps identify areas where execution can be improved or where adjustments to the strategy may be needed. Importantly, these improvements should be based on data and observation, not on emotional reactions to short-term results. This approach ensures that development is steady and intentional rather than reactive. Managing stress is another important factor in maintaining emotional balance. Trading requires focus and clear thinking, both of which can be affected by external distractions or mental fatigue. Simple practices such as maintaining a consistent routine, taking breaks, and ensuring a focused trading environment can make a significant difference. When stress levels are controlled, it becomes easier to make rational decisions and follow the trading plan. Emotional stability is not just about internal mindset. It is also influenced by external conditions. Patience plays a crucial role in supporting consistency. Not every moment in the market presents a valid opportunity, and forcing trades out of boredom or impatience often leads to poor decisions. Waiting for conditions to align with the strategy requires discipline, but it significantly improves trade quality. Patience reduces unnecessary risk and helps maintain a structured approach. Over time, this selective behavior contributes to more stable and reliable results. The ultimate goal of all these elements is stability. Emotional stability allows traders to execute their strategies consistently, regardless of short-term outcomes. When behavior remains consistent, performance becomes more predictable. This does not mean that losses disappear, but it ensures that both wins and losses occur within a controlled framework. Stability in behavior leads to stability in results over time. In the final perspective, it becomes clear that fear is not something that can or should be eliminated from trading. It is a natural response to risk and uncertainty. However, when left unmanaged, it disrupts decision-making and leads to inconsistent outcomes. The key is not to fight fear directly, but to build systems and habits that limit its influence. This roadmap provides a structured way to approach that challenge. By understanding how fear operates, identifying the patterns it creates, and implementing systems to manage it, traders can gradually reduce its impact. Developing a process-oriented mindset, accepting uncertainty, and maintaining discipline further strengthen this foundation. Over time, these practices lead to greater control over behavior and more consistent execution. Ultimately, the objective is clear: control the process, and the impact of fear becomes manageable. When decisions are guided by structure rather than emotion, trading becomes less reactive and more methodical. This shift transforms trading from a stressful and unpredictable activity into a disciplined process built on clarity, consistency, and long-term growth.